Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. Everybody, so glad to have you here for another amazing episode. We have my new friend here, Yoram Baltinester, here as a guest, and he's a very impressive individual, done very powerful work in the world, and I'm looking forward to sharing him with you. So hello, Yoram.
Hi. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I love your on the video here. We can see that little light you have back there. Is that like it's almost like what is that with the stone? What do they
It
call that?
is Himalayan salt.
Oh, that's right. I know we got one ourselves. I'm like, what do you call that again? Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that vibe back there. All right, let's go ahead and tell everybody more about you. Now, Yoram Baltinester is a success coach specializing in personal development since 1989, helping high-performing business professionals and entrepreneurs to experience meaningful success. Very important. Yoram has been a serial entrepreneur since 1985. That's what, a good 35, is that, yeah, 35 years of experience. While leading a successful high-tech career in the Middle East, Europe, and North America, Yoram created and refined the LifeDesign Method and the Decisive Action Protocol. Love that. These tools facilitate effective leadership, high-quality decision-making, purposeful engagement, and the creation of meaningful success in life without sacrificing balance. Can you believe that? Yes, I can. It's here now. Okay, we can do this thing. Just decide, right? So he started his last tech company a week after September 11th and grew it through the 2008 recession to be successfully sold in 2013. Yoram has been named an international best-selling author in every region of Amazon twice. He has been featured in influential People magazine, served on the board of San Diego Professional Coaches Alliance, and has spoken on stages at Microsoft Tech Ed, Pitbull Conference, Femi Power, and Ultimate Millionaire Summit. Some of Yoram's best memories are backpacking around the world with his wife. They currently reside in beautiful, beautiful San Diego, California. Oh my God, that backpacking sounds really amazing. That's really nice.
Oh my God. Yeah. Best time of our lives.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And yes, I feel it. Wow. So, Yoram, now, with all the impact and success that you have, you still find time to, do amazing things like getting out and backpacking and just taking in the splendor of life itself, right? That's how I feel it when I feel into the vibe of it. And,
Yeah.
and it all comes through this decisive action and where this deeper fulfillment and meaning and success comes, and being able to live really our life purpose is how I see it anyway. And so I'd love for you to tell us more about yourself. What got you, tell us about your background a little bit first, and how did you get into doing all these things that you've done?
Well, it's a little bit of a roundabout story. And it starts as me as a young kid of 9 years old, going about my business, going home from school one day. And perhaps I should mention, I was born and raised in Israel, in the town of Haifa. And so I'm going back to school, and I didn't realize that there was this man watching me. And he was kind of like out of my consciousness watching me. And at some point he goes, "Hey kiddo, what are you doing?" And I told him what I was doing, which was tracing the patterns around the trunk of a pine tree, which was fascinating to me. And he listened to me very patiently and goes, is your mom home? And so for the sake of the listeners, I tell you, this is not going into a bad place. So I know today it might sound a little bit different, but he came with me home because I didn't know better. I just said, hey, sure, come on. And he knocked on the door and he goes, Mrs. Baltinester, my name is such and such, and I am a professor of applied mathematics in the Israel's Institute of Technology, and I witnessed your son doing something spontaneously that my students of 20 years old are having a hard time grasping. And I want him assessed. And so other than my mom going, of course my son would do such a thing, she said, sure, yeah, take him over, assess away, have at it. And they found me to be what they regarded to be a genius. And they sent me to learn computer science in the Israel's Institute of Technology at 10 years old by the time I got there. And so by the time I was 20, I had a career, I had a, academic degree, I had the whole thing laid out for me. And then at the age of 21, I ended up in my first personal development seminar. And I sat there. And this moment when your heart sinks because you realized you make one of these cardinal life-changing mistakes. And I was sitting there and I was looking at the guy on the stage going, this is what I need to do. This is me, that's my life, this is what I'm about, and this is what I need to do. The only problem was I could not get myself to go back home to mom and tell her that little Wunder kid doesn't want to be the computer genius anymore, but wants to do personal development. So I kind of kept it inside and kept it as a hobby. And I always engaged in more and more and more personal development. So by 1989, I was asked to lead a class and I kept doing it. But I set on this question. It's a self-doubt question. Can I actually make a living out of that? Because I was comparing it to high tech, and it's very hard to make a living out of anything when you compare it to high tech and call high tech your benchmark. And it took me 29 years, Daniel, 29 years to get to the point that I said, I'm going to release this and sell this IT company that I've grown since September 11, basically, and do that which I did for all these years as a hobby. But it's more, it's a calling, it's a purpose. It's something that unless I do that I'm going to have this sense that I'm unfulfilled. And I had to make that leap of faith, which I did. And I'm happy to say I'm not looking back. I'm here and to be apparently totally transparent. I've never made as much as I made in high tech or IT since I left, but boy, am I happier. Not to say that high tech or IT are a bad place or a miserable place, but I'm happier because I know every single day that I'm here doing what I am supposed to do.
Yeah.
Long story short.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's so powerful. I mean, that, and then that whole thing of, so, you didn't dive right into it the moment you had that awakening, like, oh, I'm supposed to go into this. Good news, bad news sort of story here, right? So it's like, I didn't do that, but some people have that awakening. They never do it. They never do it. So, and then you learned a lot. I'm sure you gained a lot through by having that company. Gave you freedom that it gave you the freedom. Maybe you could argue it gave you some freedom financially, maybe to do what you're doing now, right? Maybe But the thing is that there was a path there, and you followed the path that seemed true for you at the time. But I almost feel like what we're going to end up going to is into this decisive stuff. It's like, it just interesting. It was perfect for you because it happened, right? So it's perfect that it happened the way it happened. And yet you do have to consider, like, what would have happened if I had decided way earlier? What if I had just gone for it right away? And I think that's something that you have as a gift to give other people. Like, don't keep waiting. Decide or sooner rather than later. It doesn't matter, if you've had this idea for 29 years, now's the time, because you've done so much. You've done so much. You've done so much now with so much impact that we talked about in the bio. Through this work now. I mean, you've affected big change in the world. So there's so much to cover here. We're going to get to all of it. But I think it's like this whole thing about having more enjoyment. Like I've always said, I probably could find other things I can do with my life to make a lot more money. I can be like, oh, I can make a lot of money doing that. I could do that. I know that. But it's like, I know it's not for me to do. I'd be just doing it for the money. And so it wouldn't be as fulfilling. But no matter what amount of money I'm making, doing the work I do now, and no matter how much I wonder, like, oh my God, what am I doing, right? That ongoing thing we experience is, and even just being an entrepreneur, right? I mean, much less personal growth and spiritual awakening and all these things. But like the level of feeling like I'm making the right choice for my life is perpetual, like that at that deeper level. Like I know that I'm on the right path, right? And there's some fulfillment in that is just beyond. And it's always come from me making those powerful decisions each and every step along the way when I could have given up or, made other choices. And all the best. I really loved having having you on to talk about this today, about decision, because it's like without these powerful decisions, things just don't change, right? And we can't have that deeper, meaningful life that we're looking for. So I'd love to dive in right from there as like, why is it so hard for people, in your own estimation, to make these powerful decisions to do what they know really what is true for them? What, given all your experience, what would you say about
that? Where do I even start?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I agree with you 100%, and I keep telling people, and that is actually more in the business world than in life. And I tell them, nothing happens until a decision is made. And at that point, I need to qualify and clarify that a decision is evidenced by action. In other words, if you're standing at a red light and you're like the first in line and the light changes to green and you conclude that you can go because you look right and left and it's clear, you didn't decide to go. You just concluded that it's okay to go. A decision has been made the moment the cart starts moving because you push the pedal. And there is, of course, all the environmental stuff. We're always being taught, and maybe not all of us, but the way we grow up. And the way we grow up is we grow up to don't speak unless you know what you're talking about. Don't make a mistake because you're going to be told no, or you're going to be ridiculed by others, or, on the field, pass it to the perfect person to receive it rather than be creative about something. And people don't want to make mistakes. And that's on the surface level. But on the deeper level, when you talk to people about decisions and you ask them what makes a good decision, I've found that 90% of them are going to tell you, well, if you look at the consequences and the consequences were good, then that was a good decision. And I'm grateful to a degree that we are where we are here in the summer of 2020, having experienced COVID-19 and the economic repercussions and the racial tensions. And oh my God, what we just heard about Beirut the other day. We have absolutely positively no clue what's going to happen.
Right.
Well, if we don't have a clue about what's going to happen, and a good decision is good because the consequences are good, then how are we to make a good decision? And if we can't make mistakes and we can't make a good decision because we're not prophets, now we're stuck. And we grow up with that stuckness. And so a couple of things that I realized over the years is, number one, is a decision is not a good decision based on the repercussions and the consequences of the decisions. That is an absolute myth, total myth. A decision is a good decision based on whether or not you took it in alignment with your values, in alignment with who you are, and in alignment with what you think is right and appropriate to the situation in the world. But more than that, given who you are, how you want to show up in life. And so I tend to take people through this little matrix. And I said, if you take a decision based on your values and it works out, it's like, yay, all right, it worked out, let's celebrate. Yeah. If you take a decision based on your values and it doesn't work out, then you typically say something to the effect of, well, I took the best decision that I could and it didn't work out. Well, what happens if you take a decision against your values? And oh, we know that it's against our values, but sometimes we take it anyway. Why? Oh, well, maybe there's $1 million on the table. Maybe there's, that gorgeous partner in front of us or something, or somebody who's not the partner, right? So we take a bad decision, a decision against our value, and it works out. You make the $1 million and you get away with it. And there's always going to be a part of you remembering what you needed to do in order to get that $1 million that might even start your career. Now you're 10 million. And it's going to be like, okay, fine. I did that. I'm not very proud of it, is the phrase that I hear a lot. Mm-hmm. But I did it. Like, I could be worth a lot right now if I decided to stay in high tech, and I'd be really saying something like that. Like, not really very proud of my career, but it's a career. It was honorable and I made a lot of money. But here's the kicker. When you're going to really kick yourself in the back is when you take a decision against your values and it turns out bad. That's when you're saying, oh my God, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to live with that regret. And I teach people not to live with that regret. And the decision based on values does not require you to be a prophet and know what's going to happen. It's just requires you to know who you are, mm-hmm. and how you want to show up in life. Yes. And given that protocol, because it allows you to take a decision based on something that you've already known, and you have the foundation for the decision. You look at the situation, ask a question, and you typically immediately know the answer. Now you made a quality decision quickly. And to be honest with you, the way that I sell that in the business world, and it's true for every area of life, but in the business world, what have you saved when you made a quick decision? Mm-hmm. Save time. Well, what are you going to do with that time? Well, you reinvest it into the business and you get in return to it, you get productivity. Well, now your business become more productive, or you became more productive in your business. And when it starts compounding because you're making a lot of decisions quicker, then suddenly your business starts to pick up and it's becoming that high performance business. And that could be true for every area of life. Mm-hmm. Especially true when it comes to business and sports. Sports is another place where quick decisions are important. But at the same time, first responders are the epitome of having to take decisions quickly. So that's in part where this is coming from.
This is very, very fascinating and very, very illuminating. Like for me, I have a process. I won't mention what it is because I don't want to detract from our conversation. I have a process I use to come up with what are the 5 things that are most deep and meaningful to me. I've got them on my index cards, and that's the foundation. You know, I may take decisions that aren't always exactly aligned with that. There's other things I have to do with my life and other things that matter to me as well. But when it comes, especially for bigger decisions, I always need to take a look at that. You know, I mean, always with my intuition. For me, I'm very spiritual, intuitive based. So it's always that the most. But this is something as a foundational thing that I've already defined for myself. I already know what I'm invested in. And what I think what you're saying is so refreshing, even for me to hear today, is that by taking decisions that feel so soul satisfying is the word I'm giving to it, like they just feel so right for you, regardless of the outer outcomes initially, or even maybe long term, that at least you have the sense of I made the decision that I felt was best for me. And I'm so grateful for that decision because it felt right for me. Like that and alone is a lot. And then by doing that, when people keep making decisions like that, it just happens that you're going to experience the goodies along the way. You know, you're going to end up seeing the goodies anyway. The things we say we want, the money and all that stuff, and the outer success and the high performance and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's like, yeah, the first thing I got from what you're saying is like, I know you must have a process. You help people identify their values and make sure they're making choices and decisions that align with that. And by knowing your values, you could make rapid decisions because you already know what your values are and you're invested in your values. And that becomes like primary is kind of what I'm hearing. Is that accurate or is it a little different?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does become primary. And I got to tell you, excuse me for using this language, but your intuition thanks you for clarifying upfront who you are and what your values are, because that clarity plays along very well with that intuition. And I sometimes take people through a little process and ask them how they know stuff. So of course, you know, at first they're going to say, well, I think about it and I figure it out. Okay, we got it. And then somebody who is typically almost every time a little bit quieter goes, well, sometimes I have to drop into my heart space and see how it feels. And then somebody at the outer skirts of the room is going to say, yeah, and what about gut feeling? And there's gut feeling. And then there's the people who never speak, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to ask it every single time. How many of you had a question at one point in time and you knew the answer immediately? And I'm talking about that kind of immediacy that is faster than knowing or checking in your heart, or you just know, like there's no question. Like you have to make a decision and there's a question technically, but there isn't question because by the time you figured out the question, you already know the answer as well. And it's typically the people who don't speak who raise their hand. And here's the reason why. I call that knowing at the level of your soul. It is the type of connection that when you're so clear, and intuition is part of that, you're so clear about who you are and what your values are, that it is immediate there is no decision. You kind of like, you ask the question and you have the answer by the time you ask the question. And if you can just trust that, which for a lot of people is a tricky prospect to trust your intuition, but once you trust that, and once you sort of fed your intuition with that foundation of who you are with clarity, it becomes a powerful tool. And if you look at all of the people that we admire, and it doesn't matter whether it is Malala, or it is Bill Gates, or Steve Jobs, or Mother Teresa, or Nelson Mandela, they all played at that level. They all knew, they made huge decisions based on certainly not thinking about it. It's like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I'm going for, this is why I'm doing it. But that why was, in almost all cases, like, because that's what's right.
Right. Like they just know it's the right thing it's just the right thing to be doing, right? It's just a knowing. It's like they can give a story of why it's the right thing, but they just know it's the right thing. It's kind of how I'm hearing it anyway.
Exactly. If you look at Mahatma Gandhi, right, and he went for peaceful liberation from what was the biggest empire on earth, with no weapons and no army, there was no thinking about it. Any sort of thinking would have just chucked that idea through the window. Mm-hmm. He didn't go for peaceful liberation because he figured out that'll be so ingenious that it'll win. He just went for it because he felt it was the right thing to do, 100% intuitively. Mm-hmm. You know, Malala wasn't after a Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize, whichever one it was, or something. She just says, it's not right that girls cannot have education. So I'm going to speak up. You might want to kill me. You might try to kill me. You might kill me. But I'm going to die talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is very, very empowering, I think, for people to come into it. And so, you know, I've had so many, when I think about, yeah, like, well, there's so many directions we could go next, but like, I think about all the like enrollment conversations I have with people. And what do people typically say after enrollment conversation or sales conversation? They say, well, let me think about it. Let me get back to you. Let me sleep on it. Let me do this. Let me do that. Now, there's been times when I've been like, no, either you know it's right for you or not. Like, I literally been that so many times like that. Recently, I've given people more space. You know, I've experimented with that. And I found that it's not necessarily all bad, but definitely people will tend, because I was really dogmatic about it in the past, is like, if you start thinking about it, you're going to talk yourself out of it, 100%. And they always say they're going to meditate, they're going to get with all their angels and guides, and they're going to just hear the truth. And I'm like, nope, you're going to try to talk yourself out of it more than likely. I'm not saying 100%. I want to say more than likely, you're just going to try to talk yourself out of it when you already know what the answer should be right now. And so that's something I've seen. Now, I'm wondering what you think about that, because I know a lot of my listeners have sales conversations with people. They have tons of decisions to make. We all do. And is it really true? Because basically you're saying, like, if I take it literal, like at one level, it's like, no, you instantly know what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you know, we don't need to check a gut. We don't need to check a heart. We don't need to sleep on it so much necessarily. We instantly know, which is something that I've always believed, but so many people don't believe that, right? So, so I'm wondering, this is fascinating. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Do we actually need to sleep on it? Do we actually need to so-called think about it? Is there any truth to that?
It's so convoluted, right? Sometimes we need more information. But sleeping on it is not going to help. So if you're sitting there and the doctor says you need a heart transplant, okay, you may want to get a second opinion. So you cannot make a decision on the spot. Sleeping on it, I don't know. the doctor might say, well, you have cancer. We can try and operate it, and then you might have 10 more years, or we cannot, and then you have 4 more months. But the chances are really slim. Okay, well, you may want to talk this through with your family and come back with a decision. Sleeping on it? Well, what is that going to do? It's not going to help much. The people who are in front of you in an enrollment conversation, Daniel, their guides and helpers and angels have put them in front of you to have that conversation.
Exactly.
They already gave their input.
Right, exactly what I've told them so many times, yes.
Right? So what are they trying to say? Are they trying to go back to their helper saying, are you sure? You know, there's a story, my heritage, I'm Jewish. So the story about, I like the story about Moses, who is said to be the only person in the Bible that God ever asked him twice to do something. And God, you know, says to Moses, go talk to Pharaoh, tell him to let my people go. We all know the story, right? Moses said, God, I think you have a wrong identity. You're looking for Aaron, my brother. He's the public speaker. I'm stuttering. Right. And God kind of turns back and go, look, Moses, I'm not really in the habit of asking people twice. Go to Pharaoh. I got your back. Tell him to let my people go. And we know the rest of the story. But yeah, I mean, life has a way of steering you, and you can fight life, and it's as effective as trying to fight a water slide when you're in it. You know, if you try and fight a water slide, you're going to get bruises on your knees and your elbows, but you're going to go exactly where it wants you to go and end in the pool. And if you try and fight life, it's kind of like that. You're going to end with bruises, but you're going to go exactly where it wants you to go, and you're going to end up doing what it wants you to do. So when people are in an enrollment conversation, I tell them, I say, look, you're here for a reason. Apparently there's something that I need to show you or impart with you. You already know that, or you wouldn't be here. What do you need more information? What kind of information are you looking to acquire? It's almost like asking them, well, let's think together. Let me help you think about it. Let's think about it right now. So people know. Now, all that said, sometimes you don't trust yourself enough that you would go with a decision for which you have a big story around it, and therefore we call it a big decision. And I'm not saying they're not big decisions, but when we have a story about it, like the cancer example, then we have a story wrapped around it, especially for us that believe that, let's say, if you believe that we're here just once, and it's a big deal to die, which most people think, then that's the story that's wrapped around it. And so some people don't really trust themselves a lot to go with their intuition, and then they need to do what we need in front of the app store, which we buy on the impulse and then we justify it logically. Mm-hmm. So they know what the decision is, but then they want to recruit the heart feeling to be the same and the gut feeling to be the same, and finally to get some sort of a story of why that's the right decision, and then go back and go, I thought about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And some people need that, but you don't have to need that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, one of the things I asked you before you came on, because you're in a personal development, like, are you spiritually based? And you said yes. You know, you're in connected and all that. And so when you're talking about, we're very into past life stuff and all that on this show. So I really think like what you said is so true in terms of our overall soul path. Like that slide's taking you that way, whether you want it or not. You know, you think you want it or not, no matter what you're thinking. And it's just a matter of how many bumps and bruises and scrapes you want by resisting it, you know? So people might say, well, you could make all these bad decisions and then just die, but you're coming back, okay, from my perspective. You're coming back. And I actually want to say I know it because I read energy and I can see what's going on for people through their lifetime. So I can tell you what happens is it just goes into the energy bag in your soul. You come back in another life. Here you are again. All right, what decisions are you going to take this time? How are you going to? You know, life is steering it, but how are you going to go with it? You know, and we're going to see this time. You know, and so I mean, you know, you can just prolong something rather, and that's all you're really doing. You're just creating more suffering. That's all. And I've always felt that, and I feel like you're bolstering my confidence in it because I wrote it a little bit over so many years, is I've always felt like people do know in the moment. They know what's true for them when they're honest with themselves. They might not feel like they know, but some part of them does know already. But people will tell you things like this. I'd love for you to answer this as best as you know how, like just to take this one step further on this subject. There's people that now have things like, have you ever heard of human design, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or they talk about astrological charts or numerology, right? They say, I'm on my 7-year, I'm on my whatever, you know, I'm into retrograde right now. It's Mercury retrograde, so no decisions right now. Or, you know, I'm a projector. That means I can't possibly make a decision on the spot or whatever it is. And it's in my design. You can't tell me otherwise. And it's like, but I know that some part of them already knows, despite all those things that they've got going on, which have a reality to them. I'm not saying there's no reality to it, but there's still something that knows that it knows that it knows. Like somebody just did an interview with just a second ago that'll air on here. I said, it's like I had a friend that says like Mercury retrograde, I got to take them all off. I've got retrograded all over in my chart. I have to take it off all the time. He was a successful guy and everything, but I was told, I said, no, that's not true. If you decided that you're going to thrive during retrograde, it's going to work. He didn't listen to me at the time. Years later, I asked him, I was meeting with him during retrograde. I said, oh, you're doing business during retrograde? What's going on? Oh yeah, I came to a conclusion. I can decide to work during retrograde and everything's working just fine. So I mean, I just seen it so many times where this truth is really the real deeper truth. So I think there's levels of truth, you know, is kind of how I see it. Absolute truth and then relative truth. I don't know. What can you share around that to help people? Because there are a lot of people, I swear to God, there's going to be people listening to this broadcast. They're going to say, yeah, I don't know. I got my human design. There are absolutely going to be people thinking like that. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I'll be brief. I am an emotional projector. I make decisions and I teach people how to make decisions. So those of you who understand human design know that that's almost a contradiction in terms to say that I'm an emotional projector and I make decisions. But I do. And my decisions are, there is no such thing as incapacity to make decisions. There is one thing that inherently, by creation, is part of the agency that we have been given by virtue of being given a soul. And this is the ability to make decisions. And don't think about it lightly, because these decisions, the moment you make them, the moment you enact them through saying them out loud, you're actually engaging in co-creation. And so, you know, when we think about absolute truth, and there is something in the stars, obviously, because this is a recurring conversation this week. So, interestingly enough, as long as we believe in the illusion of separation, then we have separate perspectives with which to look at the world. So what's true for me may not show up as true for you. The only way that anything could be truth with a capital T is if we were to eliminate the notion of perspective, and for that you would have to be God. So God is the only entity that I can think of that has all perspectives in all infinite options of what they are at God's disposal at a given point in time, hence synthesizing out of all these perspectives what might be considered an absolute truth. But truth can still be absolute in your universe. Mm-hmm. So in your sphere, in your life, there is your absolute truth. I don't like to call it that way. In your sphere, it's absolute. But because we interact with each other, then what's absolute true for you and absolute true for me might not be the same. And the reason why I don't like to acknowledge that this is an absolute truth in my universe as opposed to another truth that might be absolute for you is because acknowledging and holding on to the absoluteness of that truth creates conflict.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so we have one person and we have an argument. Now the question becomes, can you have a civilized argument, or are you going into recruiting your friends who thinks like you and you recruit your friends who thinks like you, and suddenly we have a war?
Yeah.
And that's not a good idea. So if we can marry the idea that a truth could be absolute as long as we acknowledge that the absoluteness of it has the boundaries of my universe, and yours is as valid as mine, and it's absolute in your universe, even though it doesn't agree with mine, and we can still acknowledge that this is all true at the same time, then fine. But most humanity, unfortunately, still need to discover that. Right. And I wish we can, I sometimes ask the question, if I have a large enough group, I said, if you have just 10 minutes, but you are sure that every person in the world listens to you for 10 minutes, what would you teach them? Mm-hmm. What would be the one thing? And for me, the one thing would be that there's one human race. I would teach people unity with it, like the unity in humanity. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I mean, that's my view on it, and that absolute truth is relative to you.
Right. I mean, who knows what the absolute truth is? So, yeah, nobody knows what the absolute truth is really. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is just that the truth is if people decide that their truth is that I know in the moment, they're going to start experiencing that. I think that is more likely true for people than not, right? So, because again, it's intention based. It's like, okay, that's it. I'm going to be decisive, and you have examples, right? So you have examples of how, because this whole show, we were talking about this is going to be around fulfillment and meaning, and it comes down to decisions is why we're spending so much time on this. And there's a lot of concepts around making decisions. So that's why I'm going on and on about this. Is so important. So if people want to experience something new in their life, and they keep taking decisions the same way and keep experiencing the sense of dissatisfaction in their life, that they're not happy with the decisions they're making, not just with the outcomes, but with the sense of the way they're feeling about it, then they need to consider that maybe there's a new way of taking decisions in their life. I've had people say, I make decisions too fast. Now I need to slow down. I made too many mistakes in the past. And then they got a story that they make too many mistakes. And I always have to re-educate them to say, you didn't make any mistakes. All those things were meant for you. You took a quick decision, and even though it didn't work out the way you thought it would, it's working. And we have to, I think you're right. It's like this fear of making mistakes when the people are going for the life purpose, which we haven't even mentioned yet. There's such a depth of what we can talk about here. But like when you think about people living their life purpose, people are listening in right now. Like, okay, I want to do that thing. I want to be that big spiritual rock star. I want to live my life purpose. But I've been taking too many bad decisions. I need to actually quit making these decisions and sit on it. And then what happens is inertia takes over then, and then they're even slowing down the process.
Well, do they?
Right? I don't know. I'm asking. I'm actually asking the question. I'm asking the question. I don't know, but I'm just asking.
So here's the thing. People acknowledge that they've made mistakes, right? Which is, to begin with, unfair. Why is it unfair? Because let's say you make the decisions based on your values, then it couldn't be a mistake. It's done, game over. You took a good decision. So why are they saying they're making a mistake? Because they're changing the rules of criteria after the fact. So I took a good decision. Now I'm unhappy with the result. Now I'm going to call it a bad decision. So that's unfair. You can't change the rules in the middle of the game. That's number one. Number two, rather than slowing down, maybe improve the quality of the decision and still take them in the same speed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? You do that by understanding your values to a deeper level. Yeah. And when you understand your values to a deeper level, you engage in that conversation, you practice making decisions based on your values, then the quality of the decision is going to go up. You don't, victimize yourself. I was going to say something else, but victimize yourself by changing the rules afterwards to judge the decision based on the result. Then people are going to start feel better about it, whether or not the result was satisfactory. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the result might have been satisfactory at the point where they took the decision, but now it's like, okay, well, I made $10,000, and they go, I really wanted to make $20,000. But they've taken the decision that they've taken, and what happened, or maybe they lost $10,000. If the decision was a quality decision, there's not a reason to blame the decision, which is a roundabout way to blame myself, for the result.
Right.
Okay, I could have invested $1 million in December of 2019 in renting a custom-made venue for a big event that was going to take place in May of 2020. And it would have gone to oblivion. It would have gone away. It's like, it's gone.
Yeah.
Did I make a bad decision? It's like, no, we're not prophets. I made a bad decision only if I did that against my values.
Right. So it's a different criteria. Most people look at, so again, it's like coming back to what we started with. It's like, as long as you're making decisions along the lines of your values, that's where the true fulfillment is. It's not in just these outer results like, oh, I made money. I always say, I know perfectly miserable millionaires. They have more of a lack consciousness about life than people that have very little money. I mean, totally. They're totally are scared to death about not having enough money and needing more. There's plenty of people like that. Not obviously, like there's all kinds of people with money, right? So, but I'm just saying, like, that exists. And so it's not necessarily any better unless you're aligned with your values, right? I mean, it comes back to that.
And when you're aligned with your values, then the moment you take the decision and you take it with alignment with your values, it's set in stone that the decision is a quality decision. And the more you go through that cycle, the less you're inclined to judge the decision, because you realize that it's over the moment you made that decision. Mm-hmm. So in comes something very interesting, because now you've learned to make quality decisions quickly that you will never regret.
Right.
There's nothing to regret. Why? Because the outcome of your decision has nothing to do with the quality of the decision.
Right. Exactly.
And so that in itself helps a lot of people to just live peacefully with themselves and their decision.
Yeah.
They
Live,
don't
live
have
their
any.
life purpose, you could say, right? So, I mean, to really live that life purpose. Now, I mean, you've worked with a lot of people that are have been successful making a lot of money, and I wanted to just touch on that. So, what have you seen, like people that have come to you? Like, give me one or two like anonymous case studies, if you can, to briefly, as we start to wrap up, of how you've helped people with this process of making decisions, so they could have more, you know, more true success and more fulfillment, you know, living their life purpose. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, you have people, and for whatever reason, and I don't think actually that I don't really know it, but it's a reflection of my own struggle. I think there was values in the fact that I struggled for 29 years to make that transition. Somehow people come to me with that moment of transition. And you know, and it's difficult. You know, I'm closing on being 60 years old, so I typically attract people my age group. And so you got this person who ran a CPA firm, very successful, for about 30 years. And you know that after 30 years, you start getting into this habit. It's all habitual, it all goes, and there's this one little nagging little voice that keeps pulling on your sleeve. And she calls me and she says, I don't know what it is, but I think there's a new chapter for me. And so the problem that people like that face, people who've been attorneys for 30 years or CPAs or surgeons, is like you don't put the pen down one day and walk away. You just don't. There's transition, there's a company, there's clients, there's clients who might have been clients for 20 years. But the moment you start looking backwards, so in this particular person, I took this particular woman through what I call the LifeDesign Method, which is the method that I put together over 30 years. When you go through that method, you end up being very well aware about who you are in your essence to the deepest level. What are the values that contextualize your life? That everything either looks like agreeing with this value or not agreeing with this value, or just not an issue, right? And you know how you want to show up in life. You understand your life purpose. But then you also understand that when you have your life purpose, you can express it in various ways. Well, what does that look like, right? If you look at Thomas Edison, his life purpose was to implement science. He wasn't about the discovery necessarily, it was about the implementation. He knew about electricity, he just wanted to figure out how to apply it in a light bulb, how to apply it in a gramophone, how to apply it in a telegram. But these were different projects. So in this case, you have a person who helped people be successful her entire life through the method of accountancy. And now she decides to make a switch and she goes, it's going to be way more fulfilling for me right now to help people be successful through teaching them principles of success. And so when you look at that and you combine it with the fact that at some point in time, you don't just switch and go, okay, well, you know, I learned, let's say I learned computers in the university, but I don't like it, so I'm going to go be a veterinarian. Then she needed a transition plan. right? And the transition plan is where you start making these decisions. I mean, when you look at life purpose and you decide to accept it. Okay, that's a decision. That's a full-fledged decision. When you come to the implementation plan, the ins and outs of the daily life, that's where you start making more and more frequently decisions that you need to fall back on the decisive action protocol, or in just common language, on value-based decisions, and go through that, because you are starting a new path. And so, that's what happened. She's on a career change. She is, developing her program, and she does very well. She has her few first clients and so on, and she's going to do very well, because if there's anything that she knows, is she knows how to grow a business from a CPA perspective, right? Now, let me take it to somewhere totally different. And it's very interesting. I volunteer in my spare time with an organization that helps Navy SEALs and naval special operators to retire from 10, 15, 20, sometimes more years in service. And they would tell me that one person, I'm not going to name him, like you say, but he says, man, I just send me back to Afghanistan. I'm so much more comfortable with that than with, what do you think the big frightening task was? Writing a resume. Right? And we look at it and we go, that's crazy. But for them, it's like, hey, that's comfortable. That's my comfort zone.
Right.
Drop me into enemy territory with a half-baked plan that's gonna go array, in 5 minutes, and I'm still gonna think strategically, get the job done, because the mission has to be accomplished, get out of there in one piece and with everybody, because we don't leave anyone behind. And that's what I know how to do.
Yes.
But what are you going to do with that in civilian life? Strategic thinking, leadership, getting the job done, all of these things that for some reason they think that they only have life in the military context. So you got to go back with them. You got to go back, and it's easy. It really is easy, because generally, if you take 100 people out of the military at large and you ask them why, there's going to be a certain percentage that says, hey, that was my ticket out of my circumstances, financially, poverty, whatever, religiously, I don't know. They're going to say what they're going to say. When you talk with people who had to literally fight their way into their positions and go through hell and back in order to be accepted, it's easier to ask them the question, well, why did you do that? And there's going to be a story, and there's going to be something that goes, you know what, we connect these points according to what I call the LifeDesign Method, and you have your method, but you're going to come out with this purpose. And here's the magic trick. I don't care whether or I should say, I do care, I'm agnostic to whether you believe that you chose your life purpose and God agreed and sent you here, or that you believe that God chose your life purpose and tasked you with it and sent you here, or you don't believe any of that, but you do acknowledge that life seems to kind of work better when we choose a purpose and we focus on it. Of course, there's the people who are going to say all this life purpose is bullshit, but you know what?
Yeah, they have.
They don't get attracted to talk to me or to you.
Right, exactly. They're not going to provide you
listen
to
to
this.
this, right? So I'm agnostic to what you believe in terms of purpose, because the system of finding out what is that purpose that lights you up, that allows you to express your superpowers, gifts, whatever you want to call them, that is in alignment with your purpose, whatever you find it to be, that creates experiences that are synonymous, that feel the same as the experience that we call meaning, which is different from one person to another. once you have all that in common, then values and how you want to show up in life, which is formulated in a simple set of statements. This is how I want to show up in life. And suddenly the decisions become easier, the path become clear. And by the way, what is the situation where we need to make a decision? It's only and only when something changes. There is a change, because otherwise we just keep going. But suddenly we got a fork in the road, that's a change. Or suddenly we still want to go where we want to go, but the circumstances change. For a lot of people, the change in the circumstance right now means I have to work from home. And there are, I mean, you and I, we know them both. People who say, well, I can't really make it unless I'm belly to belly with you and we're meeting in person. Well, guess what? You just learned in the last 3 months how to do it over Zoom.
Exactly.
You're doing fine, right? So the changes creates this mini crisis, right? And suddenly you find yourself in a crisis. You need to make a decision. That's the point where you have to remember your life purpose. You have to remember your values, because during a crisis is when you tend to freak out. You, me, everybody, we freak out. And when we freak out, we don't remember our values. There's a very simple explanation to that, because values live in the prefrontal cortex. That's how we remember them. That's not where the soul of the value lives, but that's how we remember. And in a moment of crisis, we have our lizard brain hijacking all our bandwidth, shutting down prefrontal cortex, and we don't remember it anymore. So we need a system that conditions us to remember it. The people who really do it well are these special ops people who are trained in doing just that, not to freak out.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Well, we're up against our time factor here, so this is all.
We got to make a decision.
Yeah, exactly. We need to make a decision. So we want to go ahead and let people know more about how to connect further with you. There's so much to learn from you. I've been so grateful for all you've had to share. So you've got the 6 steps to overcoming crisis, talking about crises, right? So we have a sense of a crisis, or you could say a real crisis. To me, it's, it's all relative, but we have something big that we're all working through right now as a collective, and then individually people are having the sense of crisis as well. So you have 6 steps to moving through that, and we'll put a link in the show notes for that. For people to access this. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, we actually just touched upon it, but the crisis happens when something changes in your circumstances or environment, and it spells danger. And it could be big, and it could be small, or it could be local, or it could be global, right? The bigger it is, the more global it is, the bigger the crisis. Oh, pandemic, we can't travel anywhere, big crisis. We ran out of beer. I don't know, small crisis.
The crisis.
Right? And the context is important. Like my cell phone battery is out. Is it a small crisis or a big crisis? Well, I don't know. If I'm somewhere and I'm relying on this for GPS services and I don't know where I'm going, it could be a big crisis.
Right.
So the funny part is, whatever the crisis, big, small, indifferent, we all have to go through the same 6 steps. And I've put these 6 steps in a little cheat sheet that you can have handy, available everywhere. You can put it in your drawer or on the wall. I don't think it's such a big work of art that you should put it on the wall, but these are the same 6 steps that we need to go through. And I've put them, it's complimentary. I'd love everyone to have it. And in fact, I actually tweaked it a little bit. And so I did something for your listeners. And when they download it, then they can actually schedule a conversation with me personally. And I would love to create some clarity in your circumstances, some clarity in what's going on, and recommend some next steps for you. If you find that that's valuable, then I'm here for you. I think it's a valuable tool.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, we'll definitely put that in there on my blog website and on our show notes for the podcast platform as well, and for everything that where it goes. So I don't even know all where it goes. I know it goes out in all different places. So anyway, but yeah, we'll have that available. And then if people just want to know like where to contact you, if for some reason they can't seem to find what we're talking about with the platform they're listening on, where can they find you?
Well, I live on social media. My website is heyyoram.com. HEY and then my name, YORAM.com. And you have my name, Yoram Baltinester. There's going to be only two in the whole world that are named Yoram Baltinester. And you will figure out only one of them is as bold as I am.
Yeah, you'll easily be found. And thanks for your gifts, by the way. That's beautiful. I think you can make a big change in people's lives right away if they're willing to be with you. You know, I think when people are willing to be with you, they're looking for a big change. So
thank you.
So anyway, so grateful. Now, one of the things I'd like to offer you just briefly as we're wrapping up is I do these intuitive scans of people just to give them a quick download on what I see coming up for you. And I was inspired to just go ahead and share something briefly with you about what I sense might be coming up for you. And just wondering if you'd like to receive that briefly.
I would love to. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Good thing. All right. Okay, so okay, so I'm just going to tune in and then just take a moment to do that. But yeah, right away what I get is that, you know, you're going to keep deepening into your own heart space is what I feel. Like I feel this deepening of the heart. And then I feel like aligning with, because I do the chakras, I feel like it aligns more and more with your power. And that you are going to be more of a, right now it's decision stuff, which will always be a great thing. It's huge. But I also feel like you're going to be doing, it feels like humanitarian, you know, more of this humanitarian outreach. You probably, maybe you already do it, but like, I feel like there's an expansion of like, you might be going to war-torn areas or something. I don't know. I see a visual of that. Like, I see you visiting those places. And I really resonated too when you said earlier, this is like kind of piggyback on something you even just said, was that if you had just 10 minutes, you'd speak about unity, basically. So that, I mean, that's just obvious. That's not intuitive. That's just like what you said. And then I'm like, then that is what's coming next. I mean, that you're going to be talking about that. And so I think you're going to talk more and bring more healing to the planet, the consciousness, by helping them understand like how we all are unified, and that together you're going to help people to make new big decisions as collective groups. And so you're going to work with groups more and more. I think I know you do workshops and all this stuff, but like I feel like it's going to be like full organizations or the collective, like an overall collective. We're deciding this. Mm-hmm. We all agree on this, and then we're deciding this, and let's go with this decision. So I feel like this sort of energy coming in. I really just feel you deepening into the sense of being, that enlightened master sort of energy, whatever that is, but it's a descriptor word, like you're really centering into that Buddha nature, I want to say, like a deep Buddhic type of nature. And the headspace has got some, how can I say, I call it heaviness, around in this area. And I feel like there's a light coming in, there's a light coming into your crown chakra. And so there's more of that coming through, but there's something, there is some little program about something about like, I don't know, I hear something about what little old me or something like that. There's like this little old me voice I'm hearing in your energy. So part of you knows you're powerful and all this stuff, but there's another thing that's like, what little old me? And then there's other things, that I won't be sharing here, but I don't get too private, but I just want to share, like, there's certain things and traumas you've experienced in your life that do want more love and attention, I'm feeling. We can do all the, 30 years of, whatever amount of years it's been, decades of her, so there still can be those things, and they're still there for a purpose and reason, all right? So, but I feel like this complete deepening of compassion and love for yourself and others that even has even more depth still. And I think that opens up more of this energy too. There's always more I can share, but it's just, I like to share with everybody that comes on a little bit of something. So that's what I wanted to share for today.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Okay, sure thing. Okay, great. And if people want to learn more about me, just go to yoursacredpurpose.com. And I have a meditate and make money meditation that helps open people's energy and chakras and to help you to tune in each day. And people are actually, that utilize it, take the decision, utilize it, are seeing the results, are seeing them be happier, more fulfilled, and making more money. So just take advantage of that, and you can get energy scanning from me too by filling out an application there. Of course, you have to be a good fit for that, and the possibility of working with me further. So you can learn more about me there. I'll leave it at that. So Yoram, I mean, I'm just super delighted by everything you shared. It was so beautiful and supportive to me too, personally, just to hear all the things you had to share. So I'm grateful for these deep, beautiful conversations. And so thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great. I enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome. Okay. All right, everybody. So much love to everybody. You keep on tuning it in here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, and we'll keep on rocking it. Okay. All right. Until next time, everybody. Goodbye for now. You're listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.